You are not alone.
I know.
I know.
She lay in the burning desert sand, barely able to lift her head, blood drying on her skin as the wolves circled closer in the dark. When the cowboy finally found her, she didn't cry or beg for help. With a cold, broken voice, she whispered only 3 words, "Make it quick." The cowboy looked at her wounds, then slowly stood up, and what he did next shocked even the desert itself. The desert was silent except for the wind. It moved across the sand in slow waves, carrying dust and heat from the empty horizon. The sun was sinking low, painting the land in dull red and gold. Shadows stretched long between the rocks. Niaha lay near a broken stretch of ground where a dry river had once flowed. Her body barely moved. Her lips were cracked. Her hands were tied at some point, though the rope had been cut away. Deep marks around her wrists showed how long she had struggled before being left alone. She tried to breathe slowly, but every breath hurt. She did not know how long she had been there. A few hours. Maybe longer. Time felt broken. The only thing she knew was that she had been left behind. Men had brought her here. She remembered voices. Rough laughter. The sound of horses moving away without stopping. Now there was only silence. And the desert. Far away, a sound broke through the wind. A wolf howled. Then another answered. Niaha tried to turn her head, but her strength failed. Her vision blurred as the light faded. She knew what was coming. The wolves had already found her scent. She forced herself to stay awake. A dark shape moved on the ridge above her. Then another. Eyes appeared in the growing night. Niaha tried to push herself up, but her arms gave out. Her fingers dug into the sand instead. The wolves did not rush. They waited. They watched. They knew she could not run. Her heart beat hard in her chest. Fear was there, but something else burned stronger. Anger. Not at the animals, but at the men who had left her like this. A sound came from behind her. Slow footsteps. Not wolves. Human. Niaha turned her head slightly. A cowboy stood at a distance, watching her. He did not speak at first. He looked at her wounds, then at the wolves circling in the dark. The air between them felt heavy. Niaha's voice came out weak, almost lost in the wind. "Make it quick." The cowboy did not answer. He stepped closer, slow and careful, like someone approaching a wounded animal that might still bite. He stopped a few feet away. "I am not here to hurt you," he said. Niaha did not believe him. The wolves howled again, closer now. The cowboy turned his head toward the sound, then back to her. "You are not dying here tonight," he said quietly. Then he reached for his rifle. The first shot cracked through the desert night. A wolf fell in the sand, and the rest of the pack scattered into the darkness, disappearing between rocks and shadow. Silence returned, but it did not feel safe. The cowboy lowered his rifle slowly and kept watching the hills for movement. His hand stayed near the weapon as if expecting the wolves to return at any moment. Niaha lay where she was, still weak, still breathing hard. She did not understand why he had not finished what she asked. Instead of leaving, he walked back toward her. He knelt beside her carefully, keeping some distance. "You are alive," he said. "I told you to make it quick," she replied, her voice rough. He studied her face. "That is not my choice to make." Niaha closed her eyes for a moment, tired of everything. The cowboy reached for his water canteen and held it out. She hesitated, then drank slowly. The water was cold and sharp against her throat. Only then did she notice how steady he was, even in danger. Most men she had known panicked or showed anger. This one was different. Quiet. Controlled. Like he had already lost too much to be surprised by anything. "What is your name?" he asked. She did not answer at first. Then, barely above a whisper, she said it. "Niaha." The cowboy nodded once. "I am Eli." A strong wind passed through the canyon, carrying dust across the ground. Eli stood and looked toward the dark horizon again. "They will come back," he said. Niaha frowned slightly. "The wolves." He shook his head. "Not the wolves." Eli did not take her far that night. He moved her to a narrow rock shelter a short distance from the open sand, where the wind was weaker and the shadows were deeper. It was not comfort. It was cover. He built a small fire and sat near the entrance, keeping watch more than resting. Niaha stayed near the back wall, her body still weak but slowly steadying. The firelight touched the edges of her face, showing bruises and dried blood that the desert had not yet washed away. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Only the fire made sound. At last, Niaha broke the silence. "Why did you stop?" Eli did not look away from the darkness outside. "Stop what?" "What I asked you to do." Eli was quiet for a moment. Then he answered, "Because you are not finished." Niaha gave a short, bitter breath. "You do not know me. I know what I saw." That answer made her fall silent again. Outside, the wind shifted. Far away, a coyote called out, then went quiet. Eli checked his rifle and placed it beside him. "You were left in the open," he said. "That was not an accident. Someone wanted you gone without a trace." Niaha's fingers tightened slightly. She did not want to speak about them. Not yet. Not here. But the silence pressed on her. "They wanted something," she finally said. Eli waited. "They did not get it," she added. Eli nodded slowly, as if that explained enough. Footsteps echoed faintly in the distance. Eli raised a hand for silence. Both of them listened. The sound faded, then returned again. Closer now. Not wolves. Men. Eli stood quietly and moved toward the entrance of the shelter. Niaha watched him. "You should leave," she said. Eli glanced back at her. "I already said I am not good at that." The footsteps stopped somewhere in the dark. A voice called out, "Turner." Eli's expression hardened. He looked at Niaha once. "They found us faster than I thought," he said. Then he lifted his rifle and stepped into the night. The night outside the rock shelter was colder than before. Eli stood just beyond the firelight, his rifle raised but steady. The darkness in front of him shifted as shapes moved between the rocks. Niaha stayed inside the shelter, watching through the narrow opening. Her body still ached, but she forced herself to stay alert. A second voice called out from the dark. "We only want the woman, Turner. Step aside." Eli did not move. "Go back," he said calmly. A brief silence followed. Then a horse snorted somewhere ahead. A man stepped closer into the faint light. Dust covered his coat. His hand rested near his revolver. Niaha recognized the type of men he belonged to. Not soldiers. Not lawmen. Men who followed orders for money. The man spoke again. "Wallace Grady does not like unfinished work." At the name, Niaha's jaw tightened. Eli's voice stayed low. "She is not going anywhere." The man gave a short laugh. "That is not your decision." The first shot came fast. Eli dropped to one knee and fired back instantly. The sound cracked through the canyon. One rider fell from his horse, hitting the ground hard. Chaos followed. More men appeared between the rocks. Gunfire echoed across the canyon walls. Niaha grabbed a small stone and moved closer to the shelter opening, watching for any chance to help. Her hands still shook, but she refused to stay helpless. Eli moved with control, firing only when he had a clear shot. The attackers were many, but the narrow space worked against them. One by one, their confidence broke. A rider turned his horse and fled into the dark. Then another. Soon only silence remained again, broken only by fading hoofbeats. Eli stood still for a moment, listening. Then he lowered his rifle slightly. "They will come again," he said. Behind him, Niaha finally stepped into the firelight. "And next time," she said quietly, "there will be more." Dawn came slowly over the canyon. The sky turned pale, and the last traces of night faded from the rocks. Smoke from the fire drifted upward in thin lines as Eli checked his rifle one more time. Neither of them had slept. Niaha stood a few steps away, watching the empty land. The weakness in her body was still there, but it no longer controlled her movements. "We cannot stay here," she said. Eli nodded once. "I know." They moved out of the shelter and followed a narrow trail through the canyon. The land opened slowly into wide desert again, stretching toward distant hills. Eli led the way, scanning the horizon. Niaha rode behind him on his horse for part of the journey, then walked when she felt strong enough. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "Why did you come back for me?" Eli did not answer right away. The wind passed between them, carrying dust and heat. Then he said, "Because I have seen what happens when no one does." Niaha looked at him for a long moment but said nothing. By late afternoon, they reached a high ridge overlooking the desert. Far in the distance, riders moved across the sand. Eli stopped the horse. Niaha narrowed her eyes. "They are still searching," she said. Eli watched them carefully. "Yes." A pause. Then Niaha spoke again, quieter this time. "If we go on like this, they will not stop." Eli looked at her. "Then we stop them first." The wind rose stronger across the ridge. Below them, the desert stretched wide and endless, but for the first time, Niaha was not alone in it. Eli tightened his grip on the reins, and together, they turned toward the rising danger waiting in the distance. The desert kept its silence long after the riders disappeared over the horizon. Eli and Niaha stood together on the ridge, watching the same empty land that had once tried to break them both. Nothing about the world below looked kinder, but something had changed between them. Where there was once only survival, there was now choice. Some fights are not about strength alone. Some are about refusing to let another person be forgotten in the place where hope goes to die. And in that harsh land, one decision can echo far longer than any gunshot. If this story moved you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe for more emotional Western stories about courage, survival, and unexpected bonds between strangers. And share your thoughts in the comments. Would you risk everything to help